G'day, Stu from UAVfutures here, and today we're gonna be checking out this. Now this is the new Helix from ImpulseRC, and you guys should be excited. I'm super excited because ImpulseRC are the guys who made the original Alien frame, and they also did some Warp Quad stuff, and they do some really high-level premium elite frames and elite quads. So when I finally got my hands on one of these, I was like a little schoolgirl. So I was super stoked to finally get my hands on one of them. It comes with some really cool features and sort of the things you'd expect from I guess something in this price range, because it's a little bit more expensive than most of the quads out there, but it does have some really cool features. And this one, they've really kicked it up a notch. It's got some things like integrated flight controller, PDB, OSDs, a whole bunch of stuff that makes this quad super awesome. But just to let you guys know, this is going to be a two-part review, because in part one we're going to be sticking it on the bench, having a look at what it comes with and sort of the features that I like and how it goes together and sort of all that sort of stuff. And then in part two is where we're probably going to be checking out the OSD and also how it went together and some flight footage, because I do want to check out the OSD now, but I can't do it until it's built. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get started. Alrighty, now when you get it, everything's going to be meticulously packed in this tiny little package, and let's open it up and check out what we get inside. Woo! So here it is, and here is everything that you're going to get in the kit. I mean, and actually when I put it out like this, there's actually a ton of stuff in here to go through. So let's have a bit of a quick overview of what we're going to get. So you're going to get the two sort of bracing plates that are going to hold your arms together, and then you've got the four carbon fiber arms right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You're also going to get some of these like ESC holders, and I'm not 100% sure which colors are going to come with the kit, or if you get all of them, but I've got a couple of different colors of them just here. And then on the other side of the carbon, so we've got now these parts here, we've got some different ways of holding our FPV cameras in here. So I think this one's for the GoPro and some stuff like that. I've actually got two more. These ones all have different angles, but I've only got these ones out so far because I don't want to get them all confused just yet. And then down the bottom, probably some of the most impressive stuff in this kit, we've got our special VTX little combo thing right here, as well as our flight controller PDB built in right here. You've got a tiny little pigtail and some cords for adjusting some things and changing some settings. You've got some special standoffs on this side, some of your receiver antenna holders, and then of course you got all your hardware right here, so your nuts and bolts and screws and standoffs and lock nuts and all that sort of jazz right here. You got a tiny little buzzer that comes with it as well. On this side you've got like your battery pad as well as some other sticky foam pieces, and then right at the top you've got some programmable LEDs right there, and this is something I wasn't expected, is a little FTDI connector adapter right there, as well as some little pins to go for it. Anyway, let's jump in because there's so much to cover here, and let's talk about the frame itself first, so the carbon frame. Right now, so here's all the carbon laid out in front of me. This is all the bits that you get, and before I go any further, I actually want to point out, like, I've seen a lot of carbon in my day, and you know, most of it seems very similar, but this probably seems like the nicest finished frame I have ever put my hands on, or ever seen in the flesh, because this is straight out of the packet, and you do get like a little diamond file, some diamond files to file it down. But right here, this thing is like super smooth. It's like, check this out, and we'll talk about this on the arms. They've sort of, everything's been rounded. Nothing is super sharp at all, and it all looks expertly cut. So, and it feels ridiculously strong. So, I don't know if this is something else, but this carbon fiber here is awesome. Rightio, so the great thing about this frame is just how simple it is. So let's start by looking at the base plates that sort of clamp together on your arms. So these two are going to go together to sort of lock your arms in place, and they're coming in at a thickness of, for those people who are interested, one of the plates is about 2.5 millimeters thick, and then the other, I suspect that's going to be the bottom plate, and then the other plate right here is coming in at 2 millimeters thick. And nothing really too fancy about them, besides they do feel really nicely finished, and I definitely think there's the bottom side or an inner side as well as an outer side, because I think the outer side is a bit more smoothed over. This one right here has a tiny little slit, and beside that they've just got the 8 holes in them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 that's going to be used to connect up to each arm. Now speaking of the arms, you will notice straight away that it is a very thin profile arm. So this one's made to spin the 5-inch props. That's exactly what this one's for, and you are not going to have very much air resistance whatsoever as you're cutting through. So probably the thing that really baffles me is just how stiff. I can't even bend that in the slightest. So that is really, really impressive. It's coming in at, let's see, about 4 millimeters thick. So this is probably 0.1 of a millimeter off or something, but it's coming in at 4 millimeters thick. It's made to take, I think, the 1806 and the 22 size motors right here. This little hole on the outside is so you can run your wires down underneath, because that's something that's a little bit different in this frame as well. No longer are you mounting the ESCs on the top, you're actually going to be mounting them underneath in the ESC fairings, and we'll talk about that as well. And then I guess you've got a little bit of protection on the outside of your arm as well, so that will also protect your motor in, I guess, a bit of a hard crash. And the way that it's going to hook in just here, so these do have an outside and an inside, so you're going to be clamping those two frames in just here. So you're going to put your arms in on all those little holes. The arms, it's pretty cool, they have I guess a flat side and a curved side, so I'm going to make sure the curved side is facing out, because I feel like that will cut through the air a little bit better. And then this is simply going to sit on the top like that. And you can notice right here, these actually has two larger holes right here, and I believe that they go towards the front, and this one with the little slit right here goes towards the back. And you can see when it's like this, it is going to absolutely slice through that air, so there's going to be hardly any air resistance, hardly any drag whatsoever, because you have such minimal carbon when it's cutting through. So this thing is going to be insane. Now, the only other bits of carbon that you're going to get are your actual, I guess, FPV camera mounts, and they look totally bizarre. I'm sure none of you have ever seen any mounts like this before. You actually get a couple of different types, so you're going to get your 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and also 60 degrees, so you're going to have some insane angles if you choose to go 60 degrees, and you also get one that holds the GoPro as well, so it's got a bit of a GoPro mount in it, which is great, because I suspect a lot of people are going to be wanting to film some stuff while they're racing around as well. Now, all these mounts, I think they're coming in at, yeah, about 2 millimeters thick. So all of these are 2 millimeters thick. And again, they feel very, very smooth. Same sort of carbon as well. So very, very nicely finished, especially for something with so many cutouts in them. And there's actually a really interesting way that I probably will have some comments on. I'd love to test a little bit more before I make my final verdict on how these attach to the copter. So if we have our, let's say this is at the top of the little pod space right here, what it actually does, it's going to slide on like this, and I wonder if this is the right way around, but you'll get the idea. It slides in using these two little slips, and this is the VTX that I've got just here, and that is actually what holds it in place. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see just how well this holds up, and I'm going to have to give it some tests, but a very, very interesting design on how it actually clips in nonetheless. Rightio, so before we jump in and actually talk about these very, very exciting electronics that come with it, I do want to mention these. Now, these are little ESC fairings that come with it. You're going to get, I think there's a variety of different colors that come with it that you can choose from, but these are the ones that came in my kit, so I'm not 100% sure what's going to be in yours, whether you just get one color and you have to order some others differently. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they're pretty cool. What they're going to do, they're going to clip onto the bottom of the arm just here, and you'll be screwing them down, so the 4 screw holes line up right here with your arm. And the exciting part is actually this space inside here is made to hold an ESC. Maybe black wasn't the best color to pick, actually. We'll have a look at yellow. So the space inside here is where your actual ESC is going to sit, and your ESC is going to sit, I guess, like this on your craft when you're flying around, and that will be screwed down, and the 2 little wires will come out here and then connect on the other side to your PDB. I should probably show you actually. So I've got a tiny little ESC here. I think this might be a Little B or something like that. I'm not going to use these ESCs on this build. I definitely want to put in some serious ESCs in here. This is just for demonstration purposes. So that will be going inside here. Then your wires will be running out, and then that will be slicing through the air, and this will, so they'll be sitting underneath, I guess, a little bit like landing legs as well. I didn't realize that, actually. And one really cool thing I think is going to make a bit of a difference, this thing looks like it's all about reducing drag. So you're probably going to get in a traditional frame, and I'm no aeronautical expert or aviation expert or anything like that when it comes to drag, but I suspect that when you're cutting through the air with a frame like this in just a flat space, you're going to have a lot more drag than if you're cutting through the air with something that has like a bit of a tapered edge towards the end. Sort of reminds me of like the cycling helmets, how they sort of have those long sort of pointy ones behind them, and I think you might be going for the same sort of thing when you have this frame. So I'm thinking this thing is going to absolutely slice through the air and really, really reduce that drag. So a great way to put the ESCs on the frame, keep them not only protected, but also reduce the drag. Righto, so now let's have a look at where those ESCs attach to, and this is where the PDB flight controller comes into play. So let's talk about the PDB itself first, and then we'll talk about the flight controller part of this little board. So around the outside, of course, you've got your little spaces to connect to your ESCs with the voltage and also the ground. Towards the back, you've got these little ports right here, and that's going to be so you can hook up your LEDs, which we'll talk about in a minute. Of course, you've got your LiPo space just here. Towards the front, you've got some little receiver options, and this is where you can choose your voltage to your receiver and those sorts of things. So this section's all about the receiver. I believe that this is the boot button or the flash button, but I'm not 100% sure, so we're going to have to double check that. Over here you've got a little space for your RSSI, and towards the front is a little cutout where your buzzer is going to solder to, so it's going to be very, very snug, a very, very nice clean little build. Now, speaking of the actual flight controller that's in here, this thing is pretty insane. It can take, I believe, up to a 6S LiPo, so you don't need any filtering, anything like that. So if you want to hook up a 6S LiPo to this thing, it is going to be ready to rock and roll, which is great. You don't have to usually put in a little polluter voltage regulator or anything like that. This thing is just going to be ready to absolutely tear the sky apart. Very cool. It's rocking the MPU 6000 gyro, which is a very, very low, sort of low noise sort of gyro, so it's not going to have any issues that some of the older F3 boards or some of the other sort of F1 boards used to have, so it's going to be very, very stable. It's also got some memory on here as well, so you can start your black box logging if you want to check out what your gyro is doing and that sort of stuff. And overall, a very, very tight, powerful little package in a very, very small form factor. Alrighty, and then the other part of the magic here that ImpulseRC has put out is this OSD VTX. Now, this thing is very, very cool because there is a ton of options that you can do with this, and I would love to stick these in all my craft, especially when you combine it with one of these PDBs. Now, so what essentially we have, this is the OSD and VTX all put into one nice, neat little package. So if you're one of those people who wants an OSD, but you're not 100% sure how to set one up, this is definitely for you. It cannot get any easier than this, I believe, but don't quote me here. I'll leave a little link or a little comment to make it a little bit easier for people. You can just hook this straight up to your LiPo, so you don't have to do any special filtering or anything like that. And probably my favorite feature is you can configure this thing so you can actually use your radio to change your OSD settings in here, and also change some of the parameters that happen in this VTX. So you can choose things like what sort of channel you're going to be on, what sort of power level you're going to be on, so it can rock 25, 200 and also 500 milliwatts, so you can choose what sort of power level is going to be coming out of this thing, which is great because 25 if you're flying in a race, maybe 200 when you're flying with your friends, and 500 if you're flying alone, so it's great to have that sort of freedom. It does have a little inbuilt microphone, I believe, somewhere in here, so if you're one of those people who want to sort of listen to what their quad set flies around and sort of sounds like and what sort of RPM your motors are doing, it's great that you're going to have that option built in. And I believe there's a little jumper pad somewhere just here that asks, you can sort of solder up. It doesn't tell you which is which, but all you have to do is bridge some of those solder joints, and that'll either enable or disable the mic on here. It'll either ground or open up the audio. And then the other part that is really, really cool is the actual OSD itself. Now, I'm not actually going to be able to review the OSD in this part of the video. We're going to have to wait to part 2 of that because, of course, I'm going to have to build the copter and get it all working before we can have a bit of a closer look at those things. But a very, very cool little unit. And, of course, it does have the little 40-channel VTX. So, of course, you get your 32 channels and then also your race band. And it says on the website it has rock solid 5-volt out for your camera. So, we should have some very, very nice clean video, noise-free footage as well. Alrighty, and then the only other 3 electronics to look at are right here. So very quickly we'll talk about these because these ones aren't quite as exciting as those awesome VTXs, OSD combos and PDB flight controllers. But right here we've got our programmable LEDs, which mean you can change them to any color you want when you hook them up to your flight controller, and you can there's a whole lot of parameters you can do in beta flight and clean flight to make them do some really cool things. And I got to say, they got the size right. So these are gonna fit very, very well on your craft, or any craft for that matter. These I think are a great little LED. It'll be very interesting to see how bright they are. And I think what I've seen in most pictures, people are sticking them on the arms right here. So that will be very, very cool to see how they look on my quad. And also, I wasn't actually expecting this. I was pretty surprised when I opened this up actually. And this is a little FTDI adapter. So a very, very nice little touch. Now Stuart, I can hear saying, what do you want this for? What is the point of this? And this is going to be so you can hook up and do some, I guess, little modifications or updating of the actual OSD firmware that's inside. So I suspect that's what that is for. I'm not 100% sure too much on the details of this, but I think that's what that is going to be for. So it's very nice that they include that option as a little bit of a premium extra, I guess. Alrighty, so we've looked at all those parts. Let's have a look at some of the little extras that sort of come in the kit as well. So of course I spoke very briefly about these two little files right here, but that's going to be great for making your carbon perfect, so you can really file down those edges if you need to, even though I don't know why you'd need to, because it's probably the cleanest carbon I've ever seen, but I know they're going to come in very, very nice little tools to have. I don't have a set of those, so that's great. Right here you've got some little bits of, I guess, antenna mounting sort of little pipes, so that's going to come in handy when we're putting our receiver antennas in, all your nuts and bolts and standoffs and screws and all that sort of jazz. Nothing too exciting. Right here are some tiny little cables, and I believe that's for your sort of connecting up to these parts of your OSD and doing some special jazz with the FTDI connector, as well as running some cables between these two, so they're going to be able to talk to each other. And over this side, of course, we've got our little buzzer, which is going to come in handy because I'm pretty sure no one wants to be losing their Helix. Some special little standoffs that go in the front of the quad. A little 45-degree SMA adapter. Oh, that's something I should mention as well. This is actually SMA, so the little plug on there is SMA, so that'll be perfect with your Fat Sharks. And then this little part here, that's going to be sort of clipped right onto the bottom and stop your battery sliding around. And this part right here is to sort of have a little bit of protection, I guess, and make this a nice soft mount against your carbon to protect your flight controller. Rightio, so with all that said and done, I know there's a ton of stuff we've got through. Let's put it together, have a bit of a dry look at the frame, and check out what she looks like. So let's check that out in 3, 2, 1, boop! Rightio, so here it is, all built. Well, I guess I'm going to say half built, because there's a couple of things in here that I couldn't quite do, like putting the ESC fairings on underneath. I couldn't put those on because I didn't have any motors to hold the top on, and I very, very lightly built this middle section here because it's going to be very, very tricky, I think, to build, and I don't really want to put it together and pull it apart just to show you guys what it would look like without the sort of frame, without the components in there anyway. But let's talk about some of the really cool things that I did notice. On the back here, these little parts, they're going to be for holding down your little antennas. So your little antennas are going to come out in a very nice little sort of hook little shape. So that's a very, very smart idea. Obviously, you have to tighten them up from the bottom so they're facing the right direction. On the top here, you have your little GoPro mount right here, and this is what I spoke about. And then this is the part that I wanted to talk about. I haven't actually secured this part down, so I could take this off and show you some things. But a very, very interesting way of securing everything to the frame. I do have some issues and wondering how that is going to go about in a very heavy crash. You're going to probably be putting a lot of pressure onto these little spaces here of the actual board itself, so that's going to be pretty interesting to check out. And then this part, usually I can't stand it when a frame is using the PDB as a structural part of the frame. I think it's a bit of a design flaw. That was something I know with the Impulse Alien. They used the PDB as something that was very structural, but this time you've got the flight controller in here, so it's even more delicate. But check this out. It's actually a floating PDB, so it can simply slide off. It's not having any structural sort of stress put on it whatsoever, so that flight controller can simply slide over the top here. It's going to be secured with some of this this little white sort of foam sticky sort of tape stuff around the underside, and it's just going to sit on there nicely, sort of floating there. So that is a massive plus. No actual structural strain on here at all whatsoever, so that's brilliant. Now I am going to weigh the thing, but keep in mind that this doesn't have any of the ESC things on here. It doesn't have the little pigtail. There's still tons of stuff that I need to put on here. So this is just for my curiosity, what does the frame weigh in its current state? So let's put that on the scales right now, and we'll turn these on. Just wait for them to zero and find out. That's not very good. Let's tear this off, reset this to 0. Alrighty, so I've reset it to 0 because we don't want to add that extra 38 grams. I think Impulse would be a little bit upset, a little bit unfair. So in its current state, it's coming in at 107 grams. So that's not the lightest, but don't forget, it is including a PDB and also a VTX in here, as well as a bit of a GoPro holder on the top. So very, very interesting. And I do think in the end, it is going to be an absolute minimalist sort of very, very lightweight quick quick build. One thing I really do wish that came with it actually was some instructions. Because look, there is a little bit of a build online and some other things like that, but personally for me, I wish that when I open this box, we would get some instructions in here, because you are paying a bit of a premium price actually for this is pretty much the top of the line product that money can buy. So a set of instructions, some paper instructions I think, or even some colored ones, would be awesome to check out, because I know it took me quite a little bit of Googling just to see which things went around which way, like having maybe just here making sure that you have these the bigger holes towards the front, knowing exactly what to do with these things, because you have no idea what they're for. You could quite easily just simply bolt that down, knowing which standoffs to use, whereabouts your buzzer goes, and just, I guess, a bit of a manual on how to put this thing together. I think I just put that on backwards, do I? No, that's on the right way. Actually, just a bit of an idea, if you actually do want me to do a build guide of this, definitely just hit that like button down below, and if enough people like this video, then I guess that's definitely something I could consider. I've done a heap of build guides in the past, but I know that this is going to be a very special quad, and it's going to be a very special quad to a lot of people. So if you're interested in a build guide, hit that like button down below, and that definitely, if enough people do that, I'll do my best to try and put one of those together. Now in part 2, what we're going to do, we'll put it together, we'll have a look at just the things that worked really well, the things I like, the things I didn't like, or the things that could be improved. We'll have a look at some of the really cool features that it's got, and also we'll see how it flies, because that's going to be probably the thing that everybody wants to see, and how it feels. Check out some DVR, and also let's have a look at the OSD, because that's something we didn't really explore in this part, and it's definitely a major part of this this entire little frame right here. So we can't do it right now because it's not built up, but definitely in part 2 we'll also be exploring the OSD in here. So there it is, there's part 1 of my review of ImpulseRC Helix. So so far I think this is one of the most, this is one of the coolest frames that I have ever seen. I know that this thing is going to be a work of art when it's flying around, but you also need to think this is also a fairly pricey frame, so this is definitely aimed at those people who like the best of the best, or some of the most elite equipment, or they're very hardcore into racing. Anyway, what we're going to do in part 2 of the review, we're going to be putting it together, seeing what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked, what could be improved. We'll be taking it, most importantly, we'll be taking it out and giving it a bit of a thrashing around and checking out some of its flight footage, and we'll also be checking out the OSD. Now I know that this is going to be a really special quad for me. This is going to be a very special frame that I want to build up and make a really cool quad, and I've done a ton of build guides in the past, and I've been trying to focus a little bit on reviews lately, but if you're actually interested in me doing a build guide for the Helix, definitely hit that like button down below, because if enough people do that, and enough people should, I guess, show interest in a video like that, I'll do my best to put one together and help you guys out. Anyway, subscribe for more FPV related content. I can't wait to get started on this thing. It's going to be awesome. And as always, happy flying. Oh, stuff's gone everywhere. Why is that like this? Is that on the right way?